Hello there, a very good evening and welcome to another edition of Biz First in Focus. Of course, instead of coming to you live from our Newsfirst studios in Colombo, today we bring to you this interview from the BMICH, of course. It's a special day, a special interview, you can call it. At this interview, we've got with us two very eminent guests. They are two panelists at the International Tourism Leaders Summit 2019. Of course, let's first get to know our guests for this evening, and then let's move on into discussing more about the event that they've come to attend here in Sri Lanka. Both guests are guests from foreign countries, so please do make them feel welcome. Mr. Vladan, the head of revenue at the Jumeirah Group, and also Professor Sanjay, the director of Technology and Innovation at the Emirates Academy of Hospitality Management, Research and Technology. A very good evening, gentlemen, and welcome to the show.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So first, starting off with Mr. Vadan, you're the head of revenue at the Jumeirah Group, and you're here to speak at the International Tourism Leaders Summit 2019. First, give us a little bit about the overview of the Tourism Summit 2019. What do you actually hope to accomplish through the Tourism Summit 2019?
Thank you, Shamil. So first of all, I would like to thank the organizers of University in Colombo, Professor Suranga and Mr. Kasun, for inviting us to this distinguished event. So as I was giving the keynote, our hope is that we try to elevate the importance of the customer experience to the digitalization in a Sri Lankan tourism in order to increase the efforts to develop tourism further. As we've seen unfortunate events that occurred in April, the same way the negative media spread around, we want to try to push to see how customer experience and positive news from the genuine hospitality that is offered in Sri Lanka can be spread also around the world in order to drive the businesses and increase the performance overall of tourism.
Of course, Mr. Vladan, it's quite important to get the tourism sector here in Sri Lanka back on its feet, and I believe the Sri Lankan tourism industry has been doing well in that aspect. Would you agree with me?
Yes, that's correct. As I've read some statistics yesterday, it showed that compared year on year, there was a decline of 75% post-attack in May in arrivals to Sri Lanka of tourists, and in the June, that decreased to 56% and continued dropping down to 45% in May. That's a good indicator of returning tourists to Sri Lanka, and we all together have to do effort in order to improve that by educating the local businesses and also government initiatives in order to again welcome the tourists and make them feel safe as before.
Moving on to our other guest here at our interview this evening. Professor Sanjay, what is your take on the strides that Sri Lanka has made as far as tourism goes? Of course, we were named as the #1 travel destination by Lonely Planet. Do you think Sri Lanka capitalized on this event as much as they could have?
Well, Sri Lanka could have done way better in terms of capitalizing on this truly and richly deserved title. I've been an old hat. It's homecoming for me, actually. I've been coming to Sri Lanka since 2005 under various capacities. And what I've seen is truly the genuine warmth with which tourists are greeted. This is something you don't find in a lot of touristy destinations.
Right.
And you have a lot of natural resources, you have great people, you have great heritage sites. There's a lot going for Sri Lanka. So the unfortunate incidents that happened on Easter Sunday, that's a blip. However, what happens typically is when these type of incidents take place in emerging markets or developing countries, the world's big countries tend to issue travel advisories, right? So this has the powerhouses. So this has a negative impact on inbound tourism. But I think people have now begun to realize that once an incident occurs, it doesn't necessarily mean that it's likely to reoccur. And in fact, there is a growing trend among people who are into this responsible tourism to go ahead and support the destination, right? Okay, immediately after an attack, as a show of solidarity. And I think this angle should be widely promoted
In Sri Lanka, of course, we had quite a number of influencers coming into the country and promoting tourism here in Sri Lanka.
Correct. And you don't need to have paid influencers because you have so much going for you. Word of mouth, genuine word of mouth publicity is something that you can capitalize on. And this is where mining sentiment, looking at the guests' overall experience at the destination level, assumes significant importance.
Vladan, this is your first time in Sri Lanka, correct?
That's it. That's correct.
So, how would you describe your experience as a tourist here in Sri Lanka?
First of all, as Dr. Sanjay also mentioned, when I came to airport, I was welcomed with the flowers and fantastic hospitality from the organizers of the event. And I was taken to the show around, to the city around Colombo. I was fascinated with the genuinity of the people and the way the hospitality is delivered. So those experiences, as Dr. Sanjay mentioned, they should be shouted out through the various customer social media channels in order so that people can see the real, genuine hospitality in Sri Lanka is fantastic, absolutely. I've tried a couple restaurants as well, and I was impressed with the national Sri Lankan cuisine. It was my first time also to try the cuisine, so
What kind of food did you have, Vladan?
So I have the traditional fish. I forgot the full name. It's a little bit difficult for me to pronounce, but I had a fish dish with the rice, and it has a very, very spicy sauce that I did not used to on. But it was a new experience for me. So I'm really, really delighted with what I've tried for now.
But Vladan, all the niceties aside, you're here to attend the International Tourism Leaders Summit 2019. What do you hope to accomplish through the International Tourism Leaders Summit?
So my primarily goal is that one of my expertise is the managing customer experience and also employee experience, and how that can be digitalized to help small, medium and large hotels and restaurants around Sri Lanka. So my first initial thought was to giving keynote in order to raise the awareness of how important is digitalization in today's world, and then it's not anymore cool thing to have, but it became actually norm. So if your businesses are not coping with it, it will reflect back to your businesses. So my first day yesterday in Sri Lanka, I have visited around 10 properties and spoken to several GMs and owners of the hotels in order to see what is their mindset and how this can be elevated to the new level. So I'm planning to come back to Sri Lanka also to hold a few seminars also in collaboration with University of Colombo. In order to raise that awareness and see how we can lift overall experience, but also how can we make noise online so that the rest of the world can see of this fantastic hospitality that you have.
Professor Sanjay, you're the Director of Technology and Innovation at Emirates Academy of Hospitality and Management. How important do you think is technology in the world right now, in the industry of hotels and tourism?
We now live in the era of Industrial Revolution 4.0, as they say.
The digital age.
The digital age, absolutely. We now deal with digital natives. Hospitality industry, great as much as it is, has been a bit of a laggard in the uptake of technology compared to other sectors.
Right.
So it's critical to maintain that balance of high tech and high touch. It's a data rich but analysis poor industry. And this is something that we look at addressing, as Vladan mentioned, apart from looking at the trends that are happening around, we also want to educate the industry stakeholders on the value of adoption of digital. In the past, technologies were meant for companies with deep pockets.
Right.
Today, because of the falling costs of technology, it is now reasonably affordable even for small and micro businesses to leverage the advantages.
Right.
And this is what we want the industry to understand, that the value in adoption of digital will enhance the guest experience to a completely different level. There's always this talk about privacy versus convenience, but if you look at the millennials, research is absolutely on spot in trying to point out that, the
Privacy
millennials
is not
it's
their
not a
main
big
concern.
issue. Exactly, bravo. Yeah. So, and I'm not a millennial as much as I would want to be. My gray hair is a testament to that.
It gives you away.
It gives me away, yeah. But I have now become so accustomed to the digital convenience that I get. I don't mind sharing information. Exactly.
Of where you are, what you're doing.
Exactly, because the what I get in return. So, in the digital world, I am the product.
Right.
Right. So those companies, the Googles, the Facebooks of this world, monetize me as a product, which is fine, but I get something in return. There's no free lunch, as they say.
Exactly.
Yeah? So it's a give and take, quid pro quo.
One thing that Professor Sanjay, you said, caught my attention. You said this is a data-rich world, but analysis poor. Vladan, how do we get around this issue?
To top up what you mentioned also in your question, what Dr. Sanjay meant also, everybody is busy collecting various data, but when he mentioned also is that analytics poor, is that are those insights valuable in order to improve the businesses?
Are they viable?
Valuable.
Valuable, okay.
Correct. Or we are just collecting the data because we see it's a big thing now to collect the data. So I would say one phrase, more data doesn't mean necessarily more insights. So it's important also to understand what data should be collected and how to use that data in order to drive your business performance.
What's important is processing those data and creating information out of it.
That's correct. So basically, as we mentioned with Dr. Sanjay, we also did the research and we are busy developing certain seminars or way reminding experiences of the guest. So we managed to turn the textual data into the numbers itself in order to provide the scorings. For example, if you would say this coffee was bad, we are able to turn that coffee into the score and how bad it is. So you can basically monitor every step of the customer experience from your clients in order to know what is actual need. Businesses, and I've seen that across my travels as well, and hotel owners that we spoke to, they are looking in exceeding and delighting the expectation of the clients, which is a little bit tough thing to do, because how do you exceed one's expectation when it's you are not aware of the expectations? So important is for the consumers in tourism to develop an effortless experience, meaning then when they are having issue, we as a businesses in tourism are there to assist them and immediately resolve the problem. Because on the end of the day, what differentiates one hotel from another? It's a hotel room and a hotel bed. So is that what clients want? Or they are there to have a great experiences that they can share outside with outside world?
Vladan, you were speaking about how clients' experience, as far as a simple coffee goes, can be turned into a scoring system for these SMEs, hotels, restaurants, so on and so forth. But we already have technology like that in the form of various apps, even here in Sri Lanka. What's different between what you are developing and what is already there?
The current status is that analytics are superficial, so they are giving basically the top level of analysis, and they are not diving in deep in order to discover those experiences and
so
how to.
This is far from the general comments and the general reviews that you get.
That's correct. So it's basically how you monetize on a guest sentiment. So sentiments are guest feelings. So how happy the guest is about certain thing. So when you comparing that, how you going to monetize on that? How you going to increase the rates, average rates? How you going to monetize on how what people want and what sentiment says. So we do analysis to compare the revenues versus the customer experience in order to evaluate and see where we are having missed opportunity. While traditional analytics for deciding the hotel room rates and rest of the metrics are based on historical values, based on the
number of stars.
That's correct. It's not valuable anymore. For example, if you're comparing year on year Sri Lankan tourism and hotel, you will see there is a decline. So you cannot price accordingly if you are following the historical trend. So I think it's important to engage what's happening right now and how people feel about experiences right now in order to capitalize. And also improve the service and drive that happiness of the consumers that are visiting the hotels in Sri Lanka.
Professor Sanjay, correct me if I'm wrong, but this seems like a simple concept of spreading the word of how the customers felt. This is more of a developed form of word-to-word communication that you have incorporated into this technology. Am I right?
Yes and no. Yes, in the sense that at a superficial level, indeed, that's what happens. But there's much more depth to it. Right. In the sense, as Ladan pointed out, it's about creating value from the humongous amount of data that's generated. And this is where existing technologies do not have that level of agility, wherein they can mine the sentiment from multiple sources, multiple languages in real time, and provide insights to take action while the guest is still on premise. So let me give you an example. I'm sitting in a restaurant which is part of a hotel, and I find a cockroach in my soup. Right? Okay, what do? I summon the waiter. The waiter will probably go and change the soup and bring it back with some note of apology. That's where the matter ends. What happens? When I go back, I put my review on TripAdvisor. I will say, oh, the hotel was great. However, I found a cockroach in my soup. Because of which, instead of rating it as 5-star, I'm going to rate it as 3-star. Yeah. Otherwise, everything else was nice. Now, in the event I have the opportunity to address this issue on premise, right? And this is what the platform that we're working on has that capability. It sends an instant alert to the concerned people. It could be the outlet manager, general manager, the necessary stakeholders, that this guest has had a problem at table number so and so. It could be in the hotel room number so and so. So instantly the matter can be addressed at a senior level. Okay, we are complimenting the meal, have a night out, a night on us, whatever. Yeah. So what happens as a result? Oh, they have taken corrective measures. So therefore, I'm less likely. Exactly. I'm less likely to put a negative review. So this is what we call guest recovery, on-premise guest recovery.
Real time,
absolutely. Because we live in this age of big data, which is defined by volume of data, velocity, speed of data, real time, and variety. So we have numbers and text.
And as the age-old saying goes, timing is everything.
Absolutely. So if you're able to recover, if you have this guest recovery on premise, it removes the pain point or the chances of negative reviews making it into the public domain. Yeah. So this sort of complements. I don't know if Ladan has something to add to this, because I may have missed out on some important elements.
So Ladan, as developers of this product, this app, whatever you'd like to call it, what is the role of the consumer, the client in this case? What really does the client have to do when they encounter such a situation, and how can they contribute to this product that you're putting out?
As I mentioned, basically this started as a part of my doctorate dissertation. So we developed a thesis around it. So basically it's not a product, but it's more like an idea that we are testing it out, and also how it works. So basically from the client's perspective, they can contribute in order to provide rich source data, like Sanjay mentioned, in terms of the revenue. So they can, because we don't have that data is available only to the clients. So we can provide your overall experience data, and then from there on you have to take the serious note of how to implement that and measure versus your revenues. Because we've seen during the test periods many clients neglect to not use it. They just take it because it's cool. And if you're taking it just because it's cool, then there is no really value added to your business. As Dr. Sanjay mentioned, value is the key word in this, because we're really looking to create the value for the businesses and how they can enhance their businesses as well, and help their clients instead of just chasing the numbers and usual key performance indicators just to get the targets, and think a little bit on a long run rather than a short run.
Professor Sanjay, customers are of course one side of the coin and one half of the story that we're talking about. What really, from the perspective of the SME owners, the hotel owners, what do they have to contribute for this idea to become a reality?
Adding on to what Ladan just mentioned, there are enterprise level solutions which are targeted at the big hotel chains that claim to do a lot of this stuff, right? However, they are not as agile to begin with. That's number one, and they're hugely expensive. So coming back to your question about small independent micro businesses, and these constitute in any geography, these constitute roughly 70 to 80%, if not more.
If you could just give us a few examples as to what really falls into this category.
This could mean independent standalone hotels, mom and pop coffee shops,
Right.
so that entire spectrum, small chains of hotels, boutique hotels. This could any guest facing service, if I may put it, not necessarily just restricted to hospitality. That's another story, because
And not only to foreign tourists.
not only not only to foreign tourists. This could be internal. It could even be to capture employee satisfaction. Right, because at the end of the day, if your staff is not happy, how can they keep the guests happy? Yeah, so the same platform can be used for these multiple purposes. And when Radhan and I were talking about how to position this platform, so okay, as of now, the micro, small, medium hospitality businesses are the most underserved as far as this kind of tool is concerned. Why? Because they don't have the deep pockets to afford the enterprise level applications.
And they don't have the influence to get it anywhere else.
Absolutely. Right, and they don't even have the expertise in-house to chase the social media channels, because there are multiple channels, so many comments coming in, it can be overwhelming, right? So this is more, we see this more as in a way a social enterprise, to be able to allow these small micro enterprises to leverage digital tools, which otherwise would have been difficult because of the monopolistic pricing, or if not monopolistic, let's say oligopolistic pricing by the big guns. Yeah, to give them a level playing field with the big hotel chains.
Vladan, the tourism industry here in Sri Lanka, of course, is on a recovery road. We're still ranked #1 on Lonely Planet. How far do you think we can actually take it by the end of this year?
By looking at, as we mentioned earlier, trend that we've seen in a recovery, it's looking that it's every month it's improving for 10-15%, and continuing this pace, I think Sri Lanka tourism will recover faster than the usual rate in a similar occasions, which is between 13 and 18 months. So I am very confident the predictions, and current state it's looking very good, and I'm confident by end of the year Sri Lanka will get back on its leg and showcase what it had before the attacks itself.
Professor Sanjay, my final question to you. Has the International Tourism Leaders Summit 2019 served its purpose? Has it been able to disseminate all of this information that you shared here with me today?
The short answer is yes. Yes, indeed. I've been a regular participant at this summit over the last 3 years.
Yes.
And I have seen the impact that this has had on industry stakeholders. People who value the contribution of tourism to Sri Lanka's economy, and it is a sizable contribution, stakeholders, they are all, they go back with key takeaways from these type of conferences, because what happens here is it is a robust discussion of multiple ideas. It's an idea factory, so to speak.
A think tank.
A think tank, an open think tank, a huge, more than a tank, it's like a think lake, if I may put it that way. But yes, it's very beneficial, and even for us coming from outside of Sri Lanka, it's always a pleasure. As I said, for me personally, it's a pleasure to be back in Sri Lanka. I've been as a regular visitor here, as I said, but more than that, to be able to see how Sri Lanka's tourism industry has recovered. I've been monitoring this right since the civil war ended. So it's been a great upward trend. And it's not a surprise that Lonely Planet have put Sri Lanka on the top. And I think you all should make every effort to stay at the top. And we are here to support you.
Thank you very much, Professor Sanjay, and thank you very much, Vladan. But of course, our time on our show has come to an end. Thank you very much to all our viewers out there for tuning in. And until next time, this is the end of Biz First in Focus for today. We'll see you again next week. For the News First team, I'm Charlene Benedict. Take care and God bless.